The impossible encounter. The vast observation deck of the Coalition monitoring station hummed with the quiet efficiency of a 1,000-year-old civilization at work. Commander Vexlar, a member of the prestigious Zentheri race, turned his 4 eyes toward the holographic display that dominated the center of the chamber. His scaled hands moved across the control surface, manipulating the image of an unknown vessel that had appeared at the edge of Coalition space. "Magnify Sector 742, he ordered, his resonant voice carrying across the deck. The image zoomed in, revealing a ship that defied every principle of advanced starship design the Coalition had established over millennia. The vessel was crude, almost offensive in its appearance. Angular metal plates formed its hull, welded together with visible seams. Exposed conduits ran along its exterior like mechanical veins. Communication arrays jutted out at odd angles, and what appeared to be actual viewports, transparent windows, dotted its surface. It was like someone had taken the concept of elegance and deliberately built its antithesis. "Analysis complete, Commander," announced Science Officer Thren, her crystalline form refracting the ambient light. "The vessel's composition is primarily iron and steel alloys. Power signature suggests primitive fusion reactors, no evidence of gravitic manipulation or quantum field generators." Vexlar's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Then how did it achieve faster-than-light travel to reach our borders?" Before Thren could respond, the communications array crackled to life. A transmission was coming through, not on the sophisticated quantum channels used by Coalition members, but on ancient electromagnetic frequencies. "This is Captain Marcus Drake of the Earth vessel New Dawn. We come in peace and seek diplomatic contact with advanced civilizations. Please respond." The bridge crew exchanged glances of disbelief. Earth, the primitive world they had catalogued 2 centuries ago. The inhabitants had barely mastered powered flight at that time. Vexlar activated the translation matrix. "Earth vessel, this is Commander Vexlar of the Galactic Coalition. Your presence here is unexpected. State your method of faster-than-light travel." A brief pause, then the human's voice returned, carrying what seemed to be amusement. "We call it the Alcubierre drive. We bend space-time around our ship. It's not pretty, but it gets the job done." The science officer's crystalline structure flickered with shock. "That's theoretically impossible without quantum field mastery. The energy requirements alone." "We found a workaround," Captain Drake interrupted, somehow having accessed their internal communications. "Turns out if you're creative enough with antimatter containment and willing to duct tape a few equations together, you can make it work." Vexlar's scales shifted to a darker hue, a sign of deep concern. "You achieved faster-than-light travel through improvisation. That's the human way, Commander. We see a problem. We solve it. Sometimes with duct tape, sometimes with math, often with both." The Coalition commander straightened to his full height. "Earth vessel, you are in violation of Coalition space. Power down your systems and prepare for escort to a quarantine zone for processing." "With respect, Commander, we'll have to decline. We're here to establish peaceful relations, not to be quarantined like a disease." Vexlar signaled to his weapons officer. 3 Coalition patrol ships materialized from their cloaked positions, surrounding the human vessel. Their sleek, organic forms contrasted sharply with the industrial ugliness of the New Dawn. "Earth vessel, this is your final warning. Comply or face consequences." Captain Drake's response was calm, almost conversational. "Commander, I'd like to show you something. Watch your sensors carefully." What happened next would be recorded in Coalition history as the moment everything changed. The ugly human ship, with its exposed conduits and primitive construction, suddenly erupted with activity. Panels slid open across its hull, revealing an array of weapons that shouldn't have existed. Energy readings spiked to levels that made the monitoring station's sensors scream warnings. The New Dawn's fusion reactors, previously dismissed as primitive, began outputting power signatures that rivaled Coalition zero-point energy systems. "Impossible," Thren exclaimed. They're channeling fusion output directly into weapons arrays without quantum buffers. It should tear their ship apart. But the New Dawn remained intact. Its weapons fired, not the elegant energy beams of Coalition technology, but something far more terrifying. Projectiles accelerated to near-light speed tore through space, their mass multiplied by relativistic effects. The first Coalition patrol ship's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, offered no protection against pure kinetic force. The patrol ship simply ceased to exist, transformed into an expanding cloud of particles. "Hold fire," Vexlar commanded, but it was too late. The remaining patrol ships had already engaged their weapons, energy beams lancing toward the human vessel. The New Dawn's response was unlike anything in Coalition military doctrine. Instead of raising shields or attempting to evade, it accelerated directly toward the attackers. Point defense systems, crude but devastatingly effective, intercepted incoming fire with clouds of metallic chaff and electromagnetic pulses. Then came the truly impossible part. The human ship began to change. Panels shifted, components reconfigured, and within seconds, the New Dawn had transformed its profile entirely. What had been weapon ports became thruster arrays. What had been sensor dishes became shield emitters. They're modifying their ship mid-combat. Vexlar watched in stunned silence as the New Dawn performed maneuvers that should have torn any vessel apart. It moved like a living thing, adapting to each threat with mechanical precision. The second patrol ship fell to what appeared to be mining lasers repurposed into weapons. The third attempted to retreat but found itself caught in some form of gravitational anomaly generated by the human ship's modified dry system. Within minutes, 3 of the Coalition's finest patrol vessels had been reduced to debris, and the New Dawn remained unscathed. Captain Drake's voice returned, still infuriatingly calm. "Commander Vexlar, we didn't want this confrontation. We're explorers, not conquerors. But humans have a saying. Don't start a fight, but always finish one." Vexlar struggled to comprehend what he had witnessed. "Your technology, it defies our understanding. How can such crude systems be so effective?" "That's the thing about humans, Commander. We don't always do things the right way. We do them the way that works. Our ship might look ugly to you, but every weld, every exposed conduit, every jury-rigged system serves a purpose. We built the New Dawn to survive anything the universe could throw at it." The Coalition commander felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. "What do you want, Captain Drake?" "The same thing we've always wanted. To explore, to learn, to make friends if possible. We've spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment, reverse engineering crashed alien probes, studying intercepted transmissions, and yes, improvising solutions to problems your civilization probably solved elegantly millennia ago. And if we refuse your friendship?" There was a pause, then Drake's voice returned, carrying a weight that sent chills through Vexlar's neural clusters. "Then we'll continue exploring on our own. But Commander, you might want to consider something. If this is what one human ship can do, imagine what happens when the rest of our fleet arrives." As if on cue, Vexlar's sensors detected multiple spatial distortions forming around the monitoring station. One by one, more human ships emerged from their improvised faster-than-light jumps. Each was as ugly and utilitarian as the New Dawn, and each registered power signatures that shouldn't have been possible. The Coalition's 1,000-year reign as the dominant power in the galaxy had just encountered its first real challenge, and it had come from a species they had dismissed as barely sentient primitives. Vexlar looked at the growing fleet of human ships and made a decision that would reshape galactic history. "Captain Drake, I believe we should talk." Echoes of innovation. 3 days had passed since the impossible encounter, and Commander Vexlar found himself aboard the New Dawn. Walking through corridors that offended every aesthetic sensibility the Coalition had developed over millennia. Exposed piping ran along the walls. Occasional sparks flew from jury-rigged connections, and the entire ship vibrated with the raw power of barely contained fusion reactions. "I must admit, Captain Drake," Vexler said, his four eyes taking in every detail, "your vessel is unlike anything in our databases." Marcus Drake, a human of average height but commanding presence, smiled. His uniform was practical rather than ceremonial, covered in pockets and attachment points for tools. "Form follows function, Commander. Pretty ships don't survive first contact with the unknown." They entered what Drake called the engineering bay, though it resembled more of a controlled chaos than any proper technical facility. Humans in grease-stained coveralls worked alongside robots that looked like they'd been assembled from spare parts. In the center of it all stood Chief Engineer Maria Kovac, a woman whose hands were permanently stained with machine oil and whose eyes sparkled with an inventor's madness. "Commander Vexlar, meet the real reason human ships work," Drake introduced. "Maria's the one who figured out how to make our fusion reactors output at 300% theoretical maximum." Kovac wiped her hands on her coveralls, leaving new streaks of grease. "The math said it was impossible, so I stopped following the math and started following what worked." She gestured to a massive reactor core that pulsed with contained stellar fire. "Turns out if you add a few extra magnetic bottles and route the plasma through a quantum foam matrix we accidentally created while trying to fix a coffee maker, you get some interesting results." Vexlar's scales flickered in confusion. "You discovered advanced quantum manipulation while repairing a beverage dispenser." "Best discoveries happen by accident," Kovac grinned. "Like how we figured out FTL. Started as an attempt to create better magnetic containment for fusion reactions, ended up bending space-time instead." The Coalition commander's scientific mind reeled. Every advancement his people had made came through careful research, millennia of development, and rigorous testing. Yet these humans seemed to stumble into revolutionary breakthroughs by simply refusing to accept limitations. "Show him the fabricator array," Drake suggested. Kovac led them to a section of the engineering bay, where matter itself was being reshaped. Unlike the Coalition's elegant nanoassemblers, the human fabricator looked like someone had welded together parts from a dozen different machines. It sparked, smoked, and occasionally made concerning grinding noises. "This beauty can take raw asteroids and turn them into anything from hull plating to coffee cups," Kovac explained proudly. "We call it the everything machine. It's not pretty, but it keeps us supplied." "The power requirements alone," Vexlar began, "are insane." "Yes," Kovac finished. "That's why we tied it directly into the main reactor. Nearly blew up the ship the first time we tried it, but the third attempt worked perfectly." As they continued the tour, Vexlar began to understand the terrifying truth about human technology. It wasn't more advanced than Coalition systems. In many ways, it was significantly more primitive. But humans had mastered the art of making things work through sheer determination and creative problem-solving. They reached the bridge, where Drake's crew operated stations that mixed cutting-edge displays with physical switches and manual overrides. Navigator James Wong was plotting courses using a combination of quantum calculations and what appeared to be hand-drawn star charts. "Our navigation computer crashed during our first FTL jump," Wong explained when he noticed Vexlar's interest. "So I started keeping physical backups. Turns out, human intuition is pretty good at finding shortcuts through folded space." Communications Officer Aisha Patel demonstrated their universal translator, a system that learned languages by analyzing patterns rather than relying on pre-programmed linguistic databases. "We built it using gaming AI algorithms," she said. "Turns out the same code that lets computers play chess can figure out alien grammar." Vexlar watched as the human crew worked with an efficiency that defied their chaotic methods. They communicated in half-sentences, anticipated problems before they occurred, and solved crises with whatever tools were at hand. "Commander," Drake said, leading him to a private observation room, "I want to show you something." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history over the past 2 centuries. The images told a story of remarkable transformation. After discovering they weren't alone in the universe, thanks to a crashed coalition probe, humanity had unified with singular purpose. Wars ended, resources were pooled, and the entire species devoted itself to reaching the stars. We knew we were behind, Drake explained. Centuries, maybe millennia behind the rest of the galaxy. So we didn't try to catch up the normal way. We cheated. Cheated. We looked at every rule of advanced physics and engineering, and we asked ourselves, what if we ignore the rules? What if we approach each problem not as scientists, but as hackers trying to break the universe's programming? The hologram showed human laboratories where traditional scientific method merged with wild experimentation. Failures outnumbered successes 1,000 to 1, but each success revolutionized their capabilities. Your crashed probe taught us about zero-point energy, Drake continued. But instead of trying to replicate your extraction methods, we found ways to tap into it using modified fusion reactions. It's less efficient, more dangerous, but it works. Vexlar's 4 eyes narrowed. You've been reverse engineering coalition technology, among others. We've found debris from at least 6 different space-faring civilizations. Each piece taught us something new, even if we had to use it in ways it was never intended. A communication alert interrupted their discussion. Friend's crystalline form appeared in the hologram, her structure pulsing with urgency. Commander, we've detected a massive energy signature approaching Coalition space. It's another human fleet, but these ships are different. They're even more improvised than the New Dawn. Drake's expression turned serious. That would be the Frontier Fleet. Colonists and explorers who've been modifying their ships for deep space survival. They're a bit more creative with their solutions. The hologram shifted to show the approaching fleet. If the New Dawn was ugly, these ships were aberrations. Some appeared to be asteroids with engines attached. Others looked like several different vessels welded together. One was clearly a repurposed space station, with massive thruster arrays bolted to its structure. This is impossible, Vexlar muttered. These vessels shouldn't be able to maintain structural integrity, let alone achieve FTL travel. Commander, Drake said, his voice taking on a diplomatic tone. Humanity isn't here to conquer or destroy. We're here because we've looked at the stars for millennia and wondered who else was out there. Now we know, and we want to be part of the galactic community. But on your terms, Vexlar observed. On equal terms, Drake corrected. We may not have your elegant technology or your ancient wisdom, but we have something else. The ability to adapt, improvise, and overcome any obstacle through sheer human stubbornness. An alarm suddenly blared through the ship. On the bridge, Wong was shouting about gravitational anomalies, while Paddle reported massive energy spikes from Coalition space. What's happening? Vexlar demanded. Drake's face had gone pale. Something's wrong. Those aren't normal readings. Maria, what are you seeing? The chief engineer's voice came through the comm system, tense with concern. Captain, the Coalition defense grid is activating. It's targeting the Frontier Fleet, but the power levels, they're off the charts. If they fire at those improvised ships. She didn't need to finish. Everyone understood the implications. The Frontier Fleet's unconventional vessels wouldn't survive a direct hit from Coalition weapons designed to vaporize properly shielded warships. Commander Vexlar, Drake said, his voice steady despite the crisis. You need to call off your defense grid. Those are civilian ships. Families. Children. Vexlar was already accessing his command codes, but his expression showed defeat. I can't. The defense grid operates autonomously when it detects potential threats. It's a safeguard against invasion, programmed millennia ago. Then we need to protect them, Drake declared. He turned to his crew. All hands, battle stations. Prepare for emergency shield extension. Maria, can we project our shields to cover the Frontier Fleet? Not all of them, she replied. But if we position ourselves right and overload the shield generators. Do it, Drake ordered. Then he looked at Vexillar. "Commander, I hope this proves our intentions. We're about to risk our ship to protect vessels full of families who just want to explore the stars." As the new dawn moved to position itself between the Coalition defense grid and the approaching human fleet, Vexillar witnessed something that would fundamentally change his understanding of humanity. The warship that had effortlessly destroyed 3 patrol vessels was now preparing to sacrifice itself to protect the vulnerable. It was illogical, inefficient, and tactically unsound. It was also profoundly noble. And in that moment, Vexillar began to understand what made humans truly dangerous, not their improvised technology or their stubborn refusal to accept limitations, but their willingness to risk everything for what they believed was right. The defense grid powered up, ancient weapons preparing to fire. The new dawn's shields flared to life, extending far beyond their design parameters, and somewhere in the space between, the future of human-coalition relations hung in the balance. The Great Awakening. The Coalition defense grid's weapons blazed to life, ancient energy arrays designed to vaporize entire fleets, focusing their fury on the approaching human vessels. The new dawn shuddered as Captain Drake pushed its shields beyond all safety limits, creating an umbrella of protection that strained the ship's improvised power systems to their breaking point. Shield integrity at 40% and falling. Chief Engineer Kovac shouted over the comm. "The reactors are redlining. We can't maintain this output." On the bridge, sparks flew from overloaded consoles as the crew fought to keep their ship together. Navigator Wong worked furiously to calculate shield geometry, maximizing coverage for the vulnerable frontier fleet. Communications Officer Patel coordinated with the civilian vessels, directing them to cluster within the new dawn's protective envelope. Commander Vexillar watched in amazement as the human warship absorbed punishment that would have obliterated a Coalition dreadnought. The ugly, improvised vessel was literally tearing itself apart to protect others, its crew refusing to yield even as systems failed around them. "Captain Drake," Vexillar said urgently, "you must withdraw. Your ship cannot survive this assault." Drake's jaw was set with determination. "Those are human families out there, Commander. We don't abandon our own." A massive energy pulse struck the new dawn's shields, causing the entire ship to lurch violently. Warning klaxons blared as hull breaches were reported across multiple decks. Yet still, the shields held. "Captain," Wong called out, "I'm detecting something strange. The defense grid. It's hesitating between shots. The targeting systems seem confused." Vexillar's 4 eyes widened in realization. The grid's ancient AI is trying to reconcile what it's seeing. A ship sacrificing itself to protect others doesn't fit its threat assessment parameters. "Then maybe we can use that," Drake said. He turned to Patel. "Open a channel to the defense grid. Wide-spectrum broadcast." "Sir, the grid doesn't accept communications." "Do it anyway. And patch in the Frontier Fleet's civilian transmissions." Moments later, the communications array hummed to life. Instead of military commands or tactical data, the channel carried something else entirely. The voices of human colonists, children singing songs to keep their spirits up, parents comforting their young, engineers sharing jokes while desperately keeping their improvised ships running. The sound of humanity at its most vulnerable and most resilient. The defense grid's assault pattern faltered. Weapons that had fired with mechanical precision now hesitated, their ancient programming struggling to classify targets that sang and laughed even in the face of annihilation. "It's working," Vexillar breathed. "The grid's threat assessment protocols can't reconcile this behavior with hostile intent." But the respite was brief. The defense grid, falling back on core programming, began charging for a final, overwhelming assault. Power readings spiked to levels that would overcome any shield, improvised or otherwise. "Maria," Drake called to engineering, "I need everything you've got. Every last drop of power. Captain, if we push any harder, the reactors will go critical. We're talking core breach, total ship destruction." "Do it." In the engineering bay, Kovac and her team worked with desperate creativity. They bypassed safety protocols, rerouted power through systems never meant to handle such loads, and essentially turned the entire ship into one massive capacitor. "Commander Vexlar," Drake said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "I need you to remember this moment. Remember what humanity is willing to do for peace." The defense grid fired its ultimate barrage, enough concentrated energy to sterilize a planet. The New Dawn's shields flared brighter than a sun, the ship itself beginning to break apart under the strain. Hull plates buckled, systems overloaded, and the crew prepared for the end. Then something unprecedented happened. From within the frontier fleet, dozens of civilian ships broke formation. These vessels, ugly amalgamations of technology, held together by human ingenuity and determination, moved to support the New Dawn. They linked their own improvised shield systems, creating a distributed network that spread the incoming fire across multiple targets. Mining ships used their industrial lasers to diffract incoming beams. Colony vessels deployed reflective chaff clouds. Even small personal craft positioned themselves to absorb hits meant for larger ships. It was chaos. It was improvised, and it was working. The defense grid's ultimate attack dissipated across this makeshift defense network. Energy that should have annihilated the fleet instead was scattered, absorbed, and redirected by humanity's refusal to accept defeat. In the Coalition monitoring station, alerts blazed across every screen. The impossible was happening. The defense grid was shutting down. Its ancient AI, faced with behavior that defied every parameter of warfare it understood, chose the only logical option: stand down. As the weapons powered off, silence fell across the battlefield. The New Dawn, battered but intact, maintained its protective stance. Around it, the Frontier Fleet's vessels showed similar damage but remained operational. "Status report," Drake ordered, his uniform torn and bloodied from flying debris. "Shields at 7%, Wong reported. Hull integrity compromised across 60% of the ship. But Captain, we're alive." "They're all alive." Vexlar approached Drake, his scaled hand extended in a gesture he had learned from human cultural databases. "Captain, what you've done today, it defies everything we thought we knew about warfare, about survival, about logic itself." Drake took the offered hand. "That's humanity, Commander. We don't always do things the logical way. We do them the right way." In the days that followed, the implications of the battle reverberated throughout Coalition space. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions to discuss the human question. Debates raged between those who saw humanity as a threat and those who recognized something remarkable in their actions. The turning point came when the Frontier Fleet transmitted their colonization proposals. Instead of demands for territory or resources, they offered cooperation. Joint research stations, cultural exchange programs, and defensive pacts that would benefit all species. "We didn't come to the stars to conquer," Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen explained to the assembled council. "We came to learn, to grow, to find our place in a larger community. Yes, our methods are unorthodox. Yes, our technology is improvised. But our intentions are genuine." The council's decision would reshape galactic politics forever. Humanity was offered provisional membership in the Coalition, with full status pending a period of integration. More importantly, human approaches to problem-solving began influencing Coalition methodology. Within a year, hybrid development teams were creating technologies that combined Coalition elegance with human adaptability. Ships emerged from shipyards featuring both quantum field manipulation and kinetic weapons. Research stations pursued both careful theoretical work and wild experimentation. The monitoring station where it all began was converted into the first human Coalition diplomatic center. Commander Vexlar, now Ambassador Vexlar, worked alongside Captain Drake to bridge the gap between species. "You know," Drake mused one day as they watched a new class of hybrid vessels departing for exploration missions, "our engineers are already working on something called a probability drive. Apparently, it involves quantum uncertainty, a modified coffee maker, and what Maria describes as aggressive negotiation with the laws of physics. Vexler's scales shifted, and what he had learned was the Zen theory equivalent of a laugh. I stopped being surprised by human innovation. Though I admit, I'm curious to see how you negotiate with fundamental constants. That's the thing about humans, Drake smiled. We don't see constants. We see variables that haven't been varied yet. As the galaxy entered a new era of cooperation and discovery, the story of humanity's arrival became legend. The ugly ships that defeated beauty, the warriors who fought for peace, the species that achieved the impossible through sheer determination and creative chaos. The Coalition had spent millennia believing they understood the universe. Humanity taught them they had barely scratched the surface. Together, they would explore possibilities that neither could have imagined alone. And somewhere in the depths of space, in laboratories both elegant and chaotic, humans and aliens worked side by side, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Because that's what humanity brought to the stars, not just technology or military might, but the unshakable belief that any problem could be solved with enough creativity, determination, and occasionally, duct tape. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.